She stood on the sidewalk in a tailored blue suit, keys clenched in her fist, when the HOA woman suddenly thrust her finger toward me and shouted, "Officer, arrest him. He doesn't belong here." Before I could even open my mouth, two men in black uniforms with the word "HOA" stretched across their chests lunged forward and grabbed my son by both arms. My boy had just been walking home from school, backpack slung over one shoulder, completely confused, completely terrified. They snapped handcuffs onto his wrists like he was some hardened criminal. Curtains shifted all along the block. Neighbors peeked out, whispering, phones already raised and recording. My son's eyes locked onto mine, wide and pleading, silently asking for help. But Karen's voice cut through everything. "He's trespassing in this neighborhood," she barked. "That kid isn't allowed here." She said it like she owned every house on the street. I stepped forward, heart slamming against my ribs, but I forced myself to stay steady. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life," I said slowly. The fake officers didn't even glance at me. They shoved my son toward the curb, toward a black and white car with flashing lights waiting nearby. Karen folded her arms, smug and satisfied, convinced she had finally won. She didn't know who I was. She didn't know what I carried in my bag. And she definitely didn't know the law wasn't on her side this time. The men tightened their grip as they pushed my son forward. He stumbled on the pavement, nearly falling, and Karen's smile widened. "See? He's resisting," she shouted loudly, making sure everyone heard. She wanted a crowd, and unfortunately for her, she had one. I walked beside them in silence, watching every move. My son whispered, voice shaking, "Mom, I didn't do anything." My chest tightened, but I placed a calm hand on his shoulder. "I know," I told him quietly, "and they're about to find that out." Karen strutted like royalty in her own imagined kingdom, pointing toward the car. "Put him inside. We'll deal with the parents later. The HOA has rules." That was when I finally snapped my purse open. Slowly, deliberately, I pulled out my wallet and flipped it open in front of them. The gold seal of the district attorney's office caught the sunlight and gleamed. The crowd gasped. The men froze. Karen's smile cracked for the first time. "You're arresting my child on his own street," I said, my voice calm but sharp enough to slice through the noise. "Without charges. Without cause." Color drained from the men's faces. Karen tried to laugh. "She can't be the DA. She's lying." But the silence from the neighbors said everything. The men holding my son looked like they'd just seen a ghost. One of them loosened his grip, hands shaking. The other whispered, barely audible, "She's the DA. We're done." Karen shoved herself between us, panic turning to fury. "Don't listen to her. She's bluffing. This kid doesn't live here. I have authority to remove him." I stepped closer, lowering my voice so every word hit harder. "Authority. You forged uniforms. You drove a fake squad car. You handcuffed a minor. Do you even understand what crimes you've just committed?" The taller man swallowed hard, eyes flicking toward the car. That's when it became obvious something no one had noticed before. The license plates weren't government issued. They were fake. A neighbor gasped loudly. "That's not even a real cop car." The tension snapped. Phones shot higher, every angle captured. Karen's face drained pale, flushed red, then pale again. "Stop filming," she screamed, waving her arms wildly. Too late. The entire block was watching, and I knew half those videos would be online before sunset. I stepped toward the men. "Uncuff my son. Now." This time, they obeyed. The cuffs clicked open. My son rubbed his wrists, holding back tears as I pulled him close, wrapping my arm tightly around his shoulders. The street went dead silent. No whispers, no curiosity, just the sharp click of Karen's heels tapping nervously against the pavement. "This is HOA business," she screeched. "You don't get to interfere." I cut her off instantly. "You impersonated law enforcement and ordered the arrest of a child. That's not HOA business. That's a felony." The fake officers stood frozen, badges suddenly looking like cheap costume props. One muttered, "She said she had clearance. She said the kid was breaking community rules." Karen spun on him. "Shut up and do your job." But their job was over. I pulled out my phone. "You have two choices," I said evenly. Sit down and wait for real officers, or get dragged away in front of everyone recording right now." The neighbors leaned in, sensing the shift. Karen's confidence collapsed. The men beside her trembled. Then real sirens echoed down the street. A legitimate police cruiser rolled in, red and blue lights washing over the houses. Karen's eyes widened, real panic for the first time. She stepped back, but there was nowhere to run. Two uniformed officers stepped out, hands resting on their belts. "What's going on here?" one asked. His gaze moved from the fake patrol car, to my son, to the trembling men. Karen rushed forward, desperate to control the narrative. "Officer, thank God you're here. This woman is dangerous. She's trespassing and using a fake badge." I didn't let her finish. I raised my ID high. "I am the district attorney of this county," I said clearly. "These men impersonated officers and unlawfully detained my child at this woman's request." The crowd erupted. Gasps, murmurs, phones, recording everything. The real officer's expressions hardened instantly. One stepped forward, hands where we can see them. "Now." Karen froze. The fake cops hesitated, then raised their hands, shame written all over their faces. But Karen? She still wasn't done yet. Her voice cracked as she pointed straight at me and screamed, "She's lying. She's protecting her criminal son." And right there, under the glare of flashing lights and the eyes of the entire neighborhood, my boy finally spoke. His voice was quiet, but it carried more weight than anything Karen had shouted all day. "Mom," he said softly, "show them the footage." I unlocked my phone with a single swipe, opened our home security app, and turned the screen toward the real officers. The video played clearly and unmistakably. My son walking down the sidewalk, backpack on, humming to himself, doing absolutely nothing wrong. Then Karen stormed into frame, pointing, yelling. Seconds later, the fake officer rushed in and snapped cuffs onto him without a single question. One of the officers leaned closer to the screen, his jaw tightening. "That's enough," he muttered, signaling to his partner. Within moments, the two impersonators were slammed face down against the hood of their fake cruiser. Real handcuffs snapped shut around their wrists. The neighbors gasped. Whispers spread. Phones stayed raised. Justice was unfolding in real time. Right there on the street. Karen's face twisted, desperation flashing in her eyes. "You can't do this to me," she shrieked. "I'm the HOA president. I have the right." The officer cut her off cold. "The only right you have is the right to remain silent. You ordered the false arrest of a minor. You're going to answer for that." The crowd erupted, not in fear, but in approval. Low cheers, clapping, even laughter. For the first time, Karen wasn't facing neighbors who feared her. She was facing neighbors who enjoyed watching her lose. But she wasn't finished yet. As the officers moved to cuff her, she screamed, "This whole block belongs to me. You'll all regret this." Her voice cracked. Whatever power she thought she had collapsed in front of everyone. I pulled my son closer, holding him tight, whispering, "It's over, almost." Because deep down, I knew the real fight hadn't even started. Karen twisted violently in the officer's grip, fighting the cuffs like a cornered animal. "You idiots don't understand," she shrieked. "I own this neighborhood. I have documents. I can prove it." The officer wasn't impressed. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for conspiracy, impersonation, and unlawful detention. Anything you say can..." She cut him off, venom spilling from her mouth. "You think she's the hero? She's lying to all of you. That boy isn't even her son. He doesn't belong in this country." The crowd gasped. Some shook their heads in disgust. Others raised their phones higher, recording every second of her meltdown. My son flinched, pain flashing across his face. I squeezed his shoulder gently. "Don't listen," I whispered. Then I raised my voice so everyone could hear. "Yes, he's my son," I said firmly. "Adopted, loved, and more American than the lies this woman spreads." My voice trembled, but it didn't break. The entire block fell silent. The officer nodded at me, his expression softening for just a second before turning hard again toward Karen. "That's enough." He tightened the cuffs and guided her toward the real squad car. But just before they put her inside, Karen looked back at us and smirked a twisted, defiant smile. "Go ahead, arrest me. This isn't over. You'll see. You'll all see. The door slammed shut, silencing her for the first time all day. I looked around the street. Neighbors were still recording, some nodding at me with quiet respect. But inside my chest, a knot tightened. Karen hadn't been bluffing. She had something else planned, something we hadn't seen coming yet. As the cruiser pulled away with Karen in the back seat, the neighbors slowly dispersed, whispering about what they'd just witnessed. A few stopped to pat my shoulder. Others offered quiet nods, but my focus stayed on my son. His small hand clung to mine, still trembling, his eyes full of questions. He didn't know how to ask. I knelt in front of him and brushed his hair back. "It's over," I whispered. "You're safe now." Even as I said it, the knot in my stomach refused to loosen. Karen's last words echoed in my head like a warning bell. Then my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number flashed across the screen. "This isn't over. The HOA doesn't forget." My chest tightened. I tilted the phone so the officer beside me could see. His jaw clenched. "We'll put extra patrols on your street tonight. Whoever's behind her won't get far." But I knew Karen. People like her never worked alone. I looked at the quiet houses, the trimmed lawns, the waving flags, a neighborhood that looked perfect on the surface, hiding cracks underneath, and I felt the weight of what was really at stake. Not just my son's safety, but the principle of it all. I straightened, pulling my boy close as he leaned against me. "We fought for this home," I said softly, almost to myself, but loud enough for the officer to hear. "And I'm not letting anyone take it from us. Not her. Not anyone." The cruiser disappeared down the street. The night air settled heavy and still, but the story wasn't over. It was only the beginning.